All right. And yes, we are live, or I'm live. Are you a person? You're a person, right, Magic?
No, I'm just a figment of many people's imagination, or so they wish.
Also, I can still get away with saying we, though, because, you would, if you're a figment of my imagination, you're just one of my other personalities that's in my head. Is that correct?
Well, considering I am from the England, I assume I must be the intellectual side of your multiple personality. So,
No wonder you're so small and insignificant in my life. Jesus Christ. My name is Pacho Kanen. What is your name? So
my
people
name
know who
is
you are.
Magic. Yes, my name is Magic Bollox.
Oh, by the way, I've added your channel to the description link so that if anybody wants to go and check out your channel, which has significantly more subscribers than me, uh, if you're not already subscribed, go subscribe to him. He's a funny fucking guy, and I what, one, two videos on your channel now?
You do, yes.
Yeah, cause I'm getting popular over there. God damn it.
Yeah, it's almost like he's taking over slowly, but then he is the more predominant side of this personality.
Yeah, but that would require me to do work though. You're always like, "Hey man, go do something, put something out," and I'm like, "I got life shit, and I'm lazy." Oh, so what are we talking about today? You know what we're talking about. This is a conversation you and I have had fucking several times now, and threatened to do this kind of conversation a couple of times too. And we're just gonna wing it.
That's right. Yes, we've been meaning to do this for a little while. I have had it, as some people who've seen my channel will know, an attempt at trying to do stuff about popular culture, be it movies and TV shows. And I've done a couple of live streams under the name of the Cluster Flicks, and it's okay, but it's not quite what I wanted to do. I actually wanted to talk about movies and films, anything like along those lines that I do enjoy or have enjoyed, because you'll find on YouTube, especially, a lot of people will talk about films they can't stand and how shit
Yeah,
they are.
well,
So
that's
I thought,
because
go ahead.
well, I was gonna say that's because the negative news is what gets people's attention nowadays. If you go in saying, "Ooh, I love that movie," you're an ass kisser. You can't like something. That means that you got an agenda.
Oh, but I have an agenda. I just haven't revealed it yet.
Yeah,
The
well, we're
agenda,
working on that. We're working on that.
yeah, the agenda is to talk about the movies that I like and the reasons I like them. And in conversation with Mr. Fodder, I discovered that we had a slight difference of opinion. We both like the movie, but we sort of have a different outlook on it, shall we say, which is, in this case, we will be talking about the movie, as in the title of this video, which might have given it away, Blazing Saddles.
Yes, the movie made in 1974 by Mel Brooks as a parody of, well, westerns, and I guess it would be racial tensions that were going on at the time. Considered a what, timeless classic by pretty much most people. I mean, in the realm of parody, you would say.
I would like to think so. Yes, it's definitely one of Brooks's most popular films.
It's definitely on people's top. If you're talking to somebody about Mel Brooks films, it's Young Frankenstein, Spaceballs, Blazing Saddles, and then the occasional fucking idiot that goes Men in Tights.
Yes, and don't forget Dracula, Dead and Loving It.
Oh God. No, that one I pretend didn't exist. That one didn't happen. That was a wet. That was a fever dream.
Yes, the sparkle had slightly gone by the 90s, but at least he was trying still, to be fair.
I was bummed out that they weren't going to remake or do a sequel to Spaceballs with the big Star Wars craze, even though it was kind of teased. But I expected it wasn't going to happen with the death of John Candy and Joan Rivers. As much as I thought she was fucking weirdo, man, she was great as Dot.
Oh yeah, very, very good. And I think the whole point of the joke in the first one about Spaceballs 2, the search for more money, you could tell straight away that it was just that. It was a joke with absolutely no intention of there ever being any kind of sequel to any of Brooks's films. And I like that, because that's one of the main problems you have nowadays. Is the
But I really wanted one. It's to me one of my favorites. I mean, it's not my top favorite. My top favorite Brooks film was Young Frankenstein. But I think we're getting a little off topic on other Brooks films. We need to talk about Blazing Saddles, because you seem to think that it is a timeless classic. Is that an apt description of what you think of the movie?
Oh yes. I think that it's just as humorous and almost relevant, you could say, nowadays, what with the growth of outrage culture, you could say, because that's kind of what it was a pushback against at the time, but sort of on the other side of the fence at the time, which was yes, you had what could be described these days as proper racism against the blacks, as opposed to these days made up racism against the blacks. But the actual humor in it, I still think holds up extremely well, because, as I was saying to you before, a lot of comic timing is one of the most important aspects of being funny. And a lot of modern comedians do not have comic timing at all. They
they can't do it anymore. We're like you were saying before, we've gotten to this outrage culture and this get offended culture. It's ultimately kind of dangerous to be a comedian, because your job is to push those buttons.
Exactly. And to be funny, you sometimes have to say things that you're not supposed to say to be funny.
Well, yeah, that's the whole concept of shock humor, or shock, even the shock jock kind of concept, was about saying things that you're not used to hearing, and a lot of the times it's one, to get a reaction, but also one, to get a laugh. Most of the time, they're really just trying to make you laugh at how ridiculous it is.
Exactly, and the whole idea of them. I mean, of course, we don't appreciate it because we weren't alive during the spaghetti western craze of the 60s and 70s, and in a way, Blazing Saddles had the unintention of actually killing it off. I think Mel just wanted to mock it, but in the same way that Airplane killed off the airport films of the 70s,
Yeah.
Unintentionally, again, it was just to do a parody. It probably did everybody a big favor, because by that point, the genre had overstayed its welcome.
Yeah, and certainly in the realm of spaghetti westerns, and I would definitely say most people are well aware of westerns, the early westerns. But I do find it funny that you hold Blazing Saddles in such high regard as a Brit, because ultimately it's a parody of American culture. So it's one that I would almost expect you not to be 100% familiar with. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So it's one of those that I was kind of going, when you were like, yeah, dude, it's one of my favorite films. I was like, wow, thank you for embracing my culture of taming the West, which is another way of saying killing the Indians. Hey, if you want the land, sometimes you got to break some eggs.
My sort of attitude towards it, it's less that it's a Western and more the fact it's just incredibly funny from start to finish. Even the lyrics to the song itself is just amusing, because it's overemphasized so
making fun of they're making fun of the old school spaghetti western intros. Blazing Saddles.
It's one of those films that you're just smiling at from start to finish, and it's one of those rare occasions where a comedy does actually make you laugh over and over again, no matter how many times you see it.
Well, the way that I've been agreeing with you, you would think that I would be on the same boat, but I'm actually not. I'm in the boat that I consider it a classic, but I consider it a heavily dated classic. Partially because, like you said, it ended up killing off the spaghetti western genre, but because of that happening, it kind of set itself up to be a parody of its own time period. So it doesn't really stretch beyond that. When westerns started coming out later on into 90s, 2000s, they started shaking loose that whole spaghetti western kind of hero saves the day, unless you're Clint Eastwood, in which then you're destroying towns and lighting people on fire. But that's fine by me. A little different, but the concept of westerns died out, came back in the 2000s, and it had completely changed. It became way more gritty. It became way more realistic. People would die a horrible, painful death, and guns were loud, and the hero was kind of a dick. So it doesn't translate well to the modern western as a parody anymore. It's literally only a parody of the spaghetti western genre, as well as the racial humor is also dated to the 70s, because as you were saying that there's probably more racism now than there's been in quite a while towards black people. It's not this kind of racism. Granted, what they were parodying in the film was also what would have been the Western of the time, which is, if a black person come wandering into sheriff, you would have John Hillerman going, "Here's our nigger." That would be what happens. But it doesn't hold up well because of the fact that really nobody's calling black people that anymore with any regularity. So it's kind of it's making fun of its own time period. So to me, it's a heavily dated parody, but still a funny movie. Where it really suffers, though, is in some of the acting, and that was my big problem with Blazing Saddles as holding up as a parody, was that the acting was hit and miss.
What sort of acting was?
For example, I thought Gene Wilder was fantastic because I think Gene Wilder is fantastic in anything, but ultimately Gene Wilder plays Gene Wilder. But that's not who I'm focusing on. Cleavon Little does a really good job for about 75% of the movie, unless he's looking at the camera and talking to the camera. Then it's kind of a coin flip where you'll get either a really funny delivery of the breaking the third wall humor or breaking the fourth wall humor, or you'll get a really lame line that just it was his one take, or he did so many takes that they took the best one they could get.
Yeah, I can sort of see that. Yeah, I mean, are you aware that Cleavon Little was actually not Brooks' original choice for Sheriff Bart?
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, if you notice during the early credits that one of the many writers for the film was in fact Richard Pryor.
Oh,
and Richard Pryor was his first choice to play Sheriff Bart, but because of
Richard's little fucking addiction problem, I imagine
that was mainly the reason. I think also the studio had this reservation that he wasn't ready to be a leading star in a film at the time, even though obviously he proved himself more than competent many years later. And ironically it would have been the first pairing of Wilder and Pryor.
And some of the funniest movies that ever came out of the 70s and 80s were Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder doing movies together.
Exactly, yes. So that kind of feels like a real opportunity miss. But in some respects, I can see what you mean, that Cleavon was probably not the most gifted actor in the book.
And I liked him. I thought he was good. I thought he did a pretty good job. It's just he was rather inconsistent about it, which kind of hurt the whole film because he's your lead.
Yes, I know what you mean. But I suppose the humor in most of the film was actually coming from around him as opposed to him. And I think one of the finest moments in the film, of course, is him kidnapping himself to save himself from being shot from the townfolk who were threatening to kill him.
Make a move or the nigger gets it.
Exactly.
They are so dumb. Yeah, still the for me one of the best characters in the film was and he's one of my favorite just whenever I see him in anything, and that includes Return of the Jedi. That was Mongo. Mongo was one of those characters that probably anybody could have done. They could have cast anybody for it, but what was his name? Something Chris.
What, Mongo's actor?
Yeah, I'm trying to
remember. Alex Karras, apparently.
Karras. Alex Karras.
Yeah.
He was a football player. He was a football player that turned into an actor that showed up in all kinds of just like iconic movies to play really fun parts. You want to know do you know who he played in Return of the Jedi?
Nope.
You remember the big monster that Luke kills in the beginning of the movie when he gets dropped down into the pit? He crushes it with the gate. The big fat guy that comes down and starts weeping about the dead monster. That's Alex Karras. And he almost steals that performance. He does that so fucking well. It's damn near cheesy, but not quite.
That's excellent to know that that's how he's got into many, many Comic Cons over the years.
I love that man. He was like I said, Mongo had some of the best lines, and even lines about Mongo were some of the best lines. Don't shoot him; it'll just make him mad.
I think also he has the distinction of being one of the very few actors who's ever got away with punching a horse on film.
Yeah. Wait, no, didn't Arnold Schwarzenegger? No, he punched a camel.
Punched a camel, yeah.
Yeah, in Kanen. The one line that always stuck out for me for Alex Karras though was Mongo just pawn in game of life. For some reason, I love an idiot.
For somebody who's supposed to be so retarded and yet very philosophical.
And knows his place in life.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
most people don't know that. Most people have an unrealistic view of their place in life. So, so for me, when it comes to it being a dated classic, has to do with the fact that one, the acting didn't hold up well in a lot of parts. Although Madeline Kahn, God damn it, Madeline Kahn is so hysterical in that movie. Always coming and going and going and coming and always too soon.
Yes, it also has one of my favorite comedy actors, which is strange.
Harvey Korman.
Funnily enough, yes, because he's not of my generation, but of all the stuff I've ever seen him in, including Dracula Dead and Loving It.
Have you ever watched any of the early Carol Burnett shows?
I haven't seen a lot because obviously we never got them over here.
Watching Harvey Korman try to maintain his composure when God, I can't remember the other guy. There's another regular on the show who would essentially, his game would be to make Harvey Korman laugh. And okay. the whole, because the show was done live, so the entire show would stop because Harvey Korman could not maintain, and it's hysterical.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he's actually one of my weaker parts in this movie.
Really?
Yeah. Hedley Lamar is a really good character, but not as well written as he could have been. By about halfway through the movie, I'm so sick of his shtick that it just doesn't matter anymore. He's too one-dimensional, and his jokes just kind of aren't that good. Especially when you're up against Gene Wilder, who's essentially playing deadpan flat the whole movie, but still managing to get hysterical moments. Like, look at this hand. Steady as a rock. Yeah, but I shoot with this hand.
It's very true, but at the same time, I think Corman does have some incredible moments. I mean...
Oh, absolutely. And he does a good performance. It's just the characters, the writing got old really quick, and it was clear they had no idea what to do with it based on the ending of how that it ended, like Monty Python, the Holy Grail,
which is the going completely off script, off location,
breaking the fourth wall.
Yes,
to me, that's a weak point in the movie. It's not a ooh, that's clever and silly and weird. He clearly didn't have anywhere else to go and decided, fuck it, we're gonna just let everyone know it's a movie.
Well, I that's where I disagree. I think it works beautifully. The whole idea that they were not taking it seriously at all, that they were even prepared to show you the film being made, and the fact that it was so badly disorganized, it would break.
But it just, dude, it happened at random. And like I said, I use the Holy Grail reference because it's almost identical. There's except the Holy Grail at least showed you occasional clips of the police that were chasing them down to eventually arrest them at the end. They break off set at random with no hint that this was ever going to happen. So it just kind of, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And that to me comes off as unplanned and poorly thought out.
I think that sounds almost like typical British humor, especially at the time, which is just to throw things in that completely you don't expect.
Yeah, but even the British humor understood how to do film conventions to at least hint at what was coming. Because, like I said, you had clips throughout the movie in Monty Python and the Holy Grail where you would see the detectives talking to people, and there was just this random scene with police officers that when you're watching the movie, going, "What the fuck is this?" Only to find out later that they've been pursuing them roaming around England.
Well, again, it depends.
Which added a whole new layer of it being being a movie, as opposed to the movie just broke down and they broke out into set.
It depends on what you actually were expecting at that point, because it could have just ended as a typical genre movie where Sheriff Bart kills Corman, during the fight, but that would have been just too cliched. So the fact that they actually decided to go completely mental and actually, have the characters break out into the real world effectively, because they don't break character when they're in the real world.
No, they don't. That's true. Except I work for Mel Brooks. I love Slim Pickens. That was another one who needed to be mentioned. He did a great. I mean, he was Slim fucking Pickens in the movie, but he to me had all the funny lines.
Well, yeah.
Oh shit! We need to go back and somebody needs to go back and get us a shitload of dimes.
The biggest joke of all is that they could have just rode around the booth at any time.
Oh yeah.
I remember
Absolutely.
even asking that question to my mother when I first saw it at the age of 12.
Why don't they just go around?
Why don't they just ride around?
I don't understand.
And that's the beauty of it, is the fact that it is so obviously silly.
Oh
but
yeah.
It's
damn near Looney Tunes.
But they do just play it straight to a certain extent. I mean, that's what I think I do like the most about Harvey Korman's performance, is that you can tell that it's completely comedic and over the top, but he's
having a lot of fun with it.
You know, even when he's doing his speech to all the villains, saying that you will almost be risking your lives, well, I will almost certainly be risking a certain Academy Award nomination for best supporting actor.
Oh, my rubber ducky. Hi, ducky. Squeak. Yeah. So my issue, like I said, with the film as a whole, is that the acting is kind of all over the place. I mean, even your smaller actors, your like old lady who would be like, "I'm sorry, Bart, for calling you a nigger. I would appreciate if you didn't go and spread that around, though." You know, she's like, "I want to be nice, but I don't want everybody to know I'm being nice."
Well, exactly. I mean, it's the slow acceptance of him,
and that's a good thing.
It is begrudgingly, but you know, I suppose there is that nice point as well, which is saying, yes, this guy is black, and yes, your prejudice is going to make you dislike him, but actually, he's quite good.
And he helped you, and ultimately, and he helped you. To me, though, and this is where I'm going to give you credit. The film, like I said, may not hold up to me, but it still has one of the best lines in cinema ever, and it's simultaneously a very serious line, but also with one hell of a punchline, and that's where Bart goes out for the first time to go to meet up with the townsfolk, and is just rejected by everyone. Comes back to the sheriff's spot to meet up with Gene Wilder, and he's sad, and Gene Wilder's going, you got to remember, these are people of the land, simple folk, they're farmers, morons. And just the look on Cleavon Little's face, where he just can't, the big grin on his face. To me, that's one of the iconic scenes in film where you get a really good serious performance out of Gene Wilder for about 30 seconds, followed by a punchline that even makes your main character laugh.
Well, I can't confirm this, but I heard it as a rumor. So obviously, if somebody in the chat knows this to be false, do say. But I had heard a rumor that last bit was ad-libbed by Gene Wilder.
Morons.
Yeah.
Well, that would explain it, because it was of all the acting that Cleavon Little did, that was the most believable a bit of acting he's done. Was that laugh?
It looked completely natural, as if he
100% genuine. Yes.
Yeah. And because otherwise, that sort of scene would sort of end quite suddenly, where the arrival of Mongo, and it wouldn't have the sort of like the humorous punch to go with it. But yes, I had heard that was just completely ad-libbed.
Well, absolutely wonderful from Gene Wilder. So yeah, for like I said, you and I are in total agreement with it being a good movie. I enjoy the movie. I still get laughs from it. I end up skipping a lot of scenes from them just because they're just really dumb. The entire scene where they're talking to the Reverend about who's going to be sheriff, and they it got just, there were so many wacky characters that it was really hard to get invested in any of them, especially since they all had the same last name. But the inbred fucks.
Yeah, I think that was another question I asked my parents when I first watched it, thinking they were actually all related.
but let me give you a different example of one that I do consider Mel Brooks to be timeless, and that is, like I said, my favorite, which is Young Frankenstein. Young Frankenstein, while being a black and white movie, which will turn a lot of people off, even me, for a long time, I refused to watch it because it was black and white. I'm like, it ain't color, fuck that. The reason that one's timeless is it doesn't matter what culture you're from. If you're somewhat familiar with any kind of pop culture, you're going to know what Frankenstein is, no matter what. With the, if you're a tribal kid in Africa, probably not. But, people in Germany, they know who Frankenstein is. Your country, you know who Frankenstein is. We know who Frankenstein is. Mexicans know who Frankenstein is. When it comes to Westerns, though, you're going to get something lost in translation to those who either didn't watch those movies or aren't completely familiar with American culture. So the theme of the film might get lost on a certain demographic there. So now you've lost a certain set of audience to be timeless for. The other aspect is you have a much better parody of the story of the source material in Young Frankenstein, and incredibly better performances from Marty Feldman to Gene Wilder to I can't remember his name, but he played the constable that had like parts that he couldn't control. He was like the character from Doctor Strangelove. It's just an overall better movie, better laughs, better source material, better parody. To me, Blazing Saddles just, it kind of, when you watch it, you know you're watching a 70s movie. If you watch Young Frankenstein, yeah, you would know you're watching an early 80s movie, but you could still watch it today, and it could still be made today with everybody getting the same amount of laughs that they would have gotten 30 years ago. Versus Blazing Saddles, if you made it today, people would have a fucking hissy fit, which may make it better in the cultural impact sense, but in terms of movie and timelessness, I consider it hurting it.
I do see what you mean in terms of, you couldn't necessarily just put Blazing Saddles on in front of, say, 50 strangers you've never met, because there's a good chance a very high percentage of them these days would have a fit, even though you could, it's blatantly obvious to anybody who stops to think about it, it is a parody.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but the language in it and the brazen language of it, and I mean, shit, you essentially had Mel Brooks doing native face. Yeah. He put on brown makeup and pretended to be an Indian and go, oh shit, he's darker than us, you know, which is funny. But if you're in this offended about everything group, a white guy being a native,
but that kind of, to me, endears it more, which is
I definitely agree that it has relevance to today, but not in the intended sense that it was in the first time around, which
I kind of embrace it in the fact that, you know, once upon a time we knew, whether or not people agree with it or not, how to have that level of fun where it didn't matter if somebody was going to be offended, because the intention was good. It wasn't there. It wasn't mean-spirited or anything like that. It wasn't insulting. It was just playing on, say, certain stereotypes about people in the Old West, playing the stereotype on the spaghetti Western genre, and just on the whole concept of the sort of, you know, at the time where, like you said, is that, you know, proper racism was still quite prevalent, and the whole idea of making your main star in a spaghetti Western a black slave who actually turns out to be a very effective sheriff and save the day. It was just turning it all on its head. But at the same time, having amazing comic timing from pretty much all the actors who are in it, regardless of, you know, the strength of their performances or not. It's still, you know, you can still watch it, you can still smile from start to finish, and you still have that sense of fulfillment at the end of it, which was, that made me laugh. Thank you very much.
But unlike a Young Frankenstein or unlike an Airplane, I don't hysterically laugh at Blazing Saddles. I enjoy it. Like I said, it's a funny movie and has some funny parts that still get me that still get a laugh out of me. But in terms of how well the jokes have held up, how well the stories held up, how well the movies held up, it's all kind of gone. It's all lost something. Something got lost in translation, at least in my end. I thought there were better parodies out there than that one that have held up way better. But the film is, by all rights, one of the best pokes at and one of the few people to be brave enough to do it, to parody and poke fun at racism. Most of the time, the only ones who were doing that were black people who were suffering racism.
Yeah, but
at the time,
I know. I know what you mean. It's just, I suppose it depends on how you can sort of visualize that sort of scenario in today's world, I suppose. And like you said, we were born after the film was made.
Yep.
We've grown up in a different time with different sort of, you know, pop culture that we've been used to. and we're obviously very, very familiar with the outrage culture of today.
Yes.
And I suppose it depends on what you expected it to be. And, you know,
well, for me, I expect it to be funny. And like you said, it is funny. But for me, the humor when I first saw it versus the humor now that I've seen it 10 times has lost way more in the jokes than when I've watched Airplane and then watched it 10 times. The jokes that Airplane gives me, I still bust a gut laughing at certain spots. Like, I mean, as funny as it was the first time, not one joke in Blazing Saddles can do that for me. I enjoy them, but they don't hit as hard as when I first saw it. Because when I first saw it, it was this, oh my God, what the fuck? You know, I had never seen anything like that before. So the shock, it was a lot like let's take Sixth Sense, for example. When you first go see the movie Sixth Sense, you're kind of tripped out by how clever it is and how kind of cool it is and how, you know, I got tricked by a movie maker. Good for me. But you watch it a second time, the movie's boring. The intrigue is gone once that initial hit of what the surprise was. And now that Blazing Saddles has been out for as long as it has been, everybody knows what it is. We've all watched it. It just doesn't hit as hard now without that element of surprise and shock value. I mean, if the only people who are going to really get any kick out of it are people who haven't seen it now, like you have never seen it all, and then you're living in now, you'll look at it and go, you'd be probably uncomfortable more than you would laugh at it.
Yeah.
Depending on how far to the left you lean.
Yeah. I suppose, again, it depends on what you want to get out of it. I mean, I probably have rose tinted glasses because I saw it at a young age. And again, like you, I was a bit blown over by it. And ironically, I saw it, of all places, on the BBC. On a Friday night.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure the BBC are kicking themselves in the ass over that one now. Oh, shit. No wonder. Fucking, oh, my God.
The very idea of our far left public broadcaster putting anything like that on these days would just be unthinkable. But it was shown completely intact, uncut, and I saw the whole thing, and just it
struck home with you. No, it probably shaped you a little bit, which is, like I said, it might have to do with your rose-colored glasses. I typically try to look at movies from as pragmatic as I can. There are movies that I'm just like that. I know it's a terrible movie, but I can't help but love it. Army of Darkness. Army of Darkness is a dumb, super dumb movie starring one of the best B actors ever to grace the cinema, Bruce Campbell. I love every minute of it. There is not a frame of Army of Darkness that I don't get a kick out of, even the really stupid ones.
Well, I have to agree with you on that but then I don't see Army of Darkness necessarily as a film in its original genre, which is supposed to be
I know
the first film. It is to me
a massive departure from the first film.
It is one of the funniest films I've ever seen, but
for a completely boomstick.
But for a completely different reason for why I love Blazing Saddles, I suppose. But like again, it's the trouble with anything is that everything's subjective, especially humor. And I mean, I love. There are certain things that I have seen that I've thought was funny, but not revisited because it wasn't necessarily funny enough. And I think for something like you, that would be kind of in the same bracket that Blazing Saddles could be put in. And it's just entirely up to the viewer whether they think something is so funny that they can watch the same gag over and over again and it still hits the same.
Well, it like for example, to me, one of the best parodies ever made came out rather recently, and by recently, like 12 years ago, which was Shaun of the Dead. To me, I went into it. The poster sold me. It was the poster read a romantic comedy with zombies, and as a zombie fan, I went, okay, I'll check it out. That sounds funny, and I was right. Not only did they make a great parody of zombie movies, they made a fucking great zombie movie, which to me is paramount in any good parody. Yeah, you can make a dumb movie and make it funny and have it be a parody, but if you can simultaneously make a really funny parody while at the same time fitting into the genre you're parodying without anybody going, there's no reason it shouldn't be there. Shaun of the Dead is one of the goriest, has a couple of really, really terrifying moments, and is hysterical from start to finish.
Yes. Yeah. It's the you can always tell the people who do the parodies who have the love for the genre.
Yeah, who appreciate the genre. Yeah, like Hot Fuzz. They liked action movies.
Yes, exactly. Whereas, I suppose you could say with Mel Brooks, it was more he was parodying it for the sake of parodying it than he was a massive spaghetti western fan.
Yeah,
but again, like you said, there's no right or wrong answer in this. Some people absolutely love it. I'm sure there's some people out there who absolutely despise it, and it might not even be because of the supposed racist connotation. They just
didn't think it was funny.
They just don't think it was funny. No, yeah. And I mean, reading up.
And they're not wrong. You're allowed to not think it's funny.
a lot of the Warner Brothers board didn't think it was very funny either, and it nearly got canned before it was ever released. So Mel got kind of lucky in the fact he had a certain level of creative control to make sure it got released, and obviously it did very well. But again, here's
the thing. I definitely understand where you're coming from. Don't think that I'm going, what you're saying is not making any sense to me. I definitely think like I said, as you said, you got a bit of rose-colored glasses because of how much it influenced you early on in life. But from the way you describe it, you're not inaccurate to why you would consider it a timeless classic. Just the only thing that for me, whenever I look at the term timeless classic, it means at any point I or anybody else will get the same benefit that the person when they sat down to watch it the day it came out.
Yeah.
And there are not many movies that fit into that category. There are not very many movies that stand the test of time. Most of the time they're stuck in their own time, which is why a lot of black and white movies, nobody wants to watch them anymore because, it was made 50 years ago. What does it have to do with me? Well, watch it. See what happens. You might learn a few things.
Mm-hmm.
One about movie making.
Yeah. So, yeah, it is a case of a lot of it is how you saw it. Like you said, I suppose a lot of people go to watch these films in the cinema with that audience and the sort of, I hate to use the phrase, but the sort of the mob mentality, which is if the audience are loving it, you're going to go along with it.
Well, it's a lot like laughter. If you can get one guy laughing, you can end up getting everybody else laughing. That shit's contagious. And whether it's an instinctual thing or I don't want to be the lone guy out of the group, don't want to argue with the mob, and now we have a mob. So.
Yep. But yeah, in terms of like this film, to me, it just I discovered it at a young age. It was I just thought the humor was exactly my kind of humor, considering it was an American film based on a very American genre. And even though I to this day haven't really watched many westerns because they don't really appeal to me, it's just it was the humor that won me over. Everything about it was just exactly tickled my funny bone. And obviously that means that over the last sort of 25 years my humor probably hasn't grown up in the slightest.
No, you're definitely very, very fucking childish. I know this for a fact. But I think we're officially kind of going in circles now with our points. We've pretty well covered it. I hope at least you understand where I was coming from, because I mean you got it when I said it, but you were when I was just like, no, I don't consider it a timeless classic. You were literally like, blasphemy. Like, well, I didn't kill your mom. Come on, man. It was just a movie.
You just kicked my top 5 right in the balls. That's what you did.
So I just realized that I've been neglecting the chat this entire time because I was just really enthralled with your conversation. So I figured before we head out and wish everybody a enjoyable Sunday, we might go ahead and address some of the things that people said in chat. I have the voice of one pop in here, which was Bollox's avatar picture says quite a lot. He must have the red silk robes. What does that mean?
It's basically an Irishman looking upon an Englishman with awe.
Ah, he's jealous of you. Gotcha.
Yep. Weekend
Warriors. I believe that would be Finer Print or the big fat Brian. He's actually quoting people. Mongo not no. Mongo only pawn in Game of Life. They're all quoting it. But anyway, interesting factoid about Harvey Korman and Mel Brooks. Every Harvey Korman character has their name mispronounced by other characters. I didn't know that. But that actually,
true, yes.
Yeah, but I definitely remember that being a constant joke in Blazing Saddles. It's Headley.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, again, it depends on the person whether or not you can stand a recurring joke over and over again.
Well, I can if it's funny, but like I said, eventually it gets old if it's exactly the same. But I didn't know that was actually kind of a running gag. But that doesn't change the fact.
One of the ones I use in the example of a running gag that works. I mean, if you've ever seen the 4th series of Blackadder, the character of Captain Darling, where the gag constantly is just misusing his name, like "Follow me, darling," and now, one of the worries they had was, is this guy going to run out of steam very quickly? And people are just going to think, oh, God, not the darling joke again. But it worked. For whole 6 episodes, the gag worked every time.
Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. And in that one, I don't necessarily consider it a bad joke. I just never considered it to be like a hysterical one. It didn't annoy me. It just didn't really stick out for me all that much.
Nope.
Let's see. More quoting. We got Irate Bear in here who just woke up from his nap, and he says Blazing Saddles is a great movie, which we both agree. I just think it's not as great as you fucking think it is. You're sitting there going, it's the best movie in the world. I'm like, so it's okay.
I wouldn't ever quite go so far as the best movie in the world ever, but it's definitely, in terms of comedies, it's up there.
Okay, well, let me go ahead and put you on the spot then. What would you consider to be your best movie that you've ever seen in the world? Not necessarily the best movie in the world, because you haven't seen all the movies in the world. Just the ones you've seen, the absolute best film.
Well, my all-time favorite film is the original Terminator.
Oh, God. I kind of love you a little bit. Because the thing is, the thing about the Terminator for me is I find the Terminator utterly fascinating of a film, because ultimately it's Halloween with guns.
Yes.
And there's just something about a serial killer horror villain with guns that ended up turning into an action thing that I find utterly fascinating, because that was Terminator 2, while I like it, was not how James Cameron originally envisioned it, but he ended up changing it because of the fact that he wanted to have fun with the movie.
Yeah.
But the original Terminator story was a lot darker and a lot more, and so they made it a little bit more lighthearted for Terminator 2, which was still rated R, which was kind of weird because
it's nowhere near as
dude, the fucking Terminator scared the shit out of me for being as bad a actor as Arnold was at the time.
It's a video I've been meaning to do for ages, just talking about why I actually like it, and the main crux of my video is going to be the reason I like it so much is because when you look at it on just paper, it shouldn't work.
Oh no, it shouldn't.
It shouldn't work at all, especially with the casting of 6'3" ribbed Austrian who can barely speak English.
Fun factoid. Do you know who was originally cast to be the Terminator before Arnold got the part?
Well, there's several answers to this. There is obviously the O.J. Simpson was considered.
Yep.
But apparently it was supposed to be, if James Cameron had his complete choice of casting, it would have been Lance Henriksen.
I'm going to go ahead and call Irate Bear fucking full of shit. Terminator 2 does not beat the first movie. I will say this, Terminator 2 beats the first movie in overall budget and graphics. But in terms of what the story's about, it literally started losing the plot almost immediately.
Terminator 2 visually holds up brilliantly all these years later. I mean, it's hard.
And I love Robert Patrick as fucking T-1000, man.
It's hard to believe in another, 2 or 3 years, it'll be 30 years old.
I know, and they hold up. Those graphics hold up pretty good, with the exception of a few of the T-1000 spots. But even that, it's okay. But for me, Terminator 2, the reason it's not as good is he went for a wider audience, rather than making a interesting, risky movie, which was what the Terminator, as you said, shouldn't work on paper. He went for your standard action movie with some time travel elements, which is fun sci-fi, safe movie. Just, it doesn't have the punch that the original has.
Yeah. Well, since we're on the subject before we wind it up, is you throwing that question at me, I'm going to throw it back at you, Mr. Fodder. What is your all-time favorite movie?
My all-time favorite movie. I typically separate based upon genre. Fuck. I'm probably gonna have to go with a horror film because of the fact that I was raised on it. My probably my favorite film of all time was probably Poltergeist.
Okay, yeah, the original Poltergeist, yeah.
It's a toss up between that and the remake of The Thing. I like the original The Thing, but the remake, the '82 with Kurt Russell, there's just something about the isolation and the acting. I'm a huge Keith. Fuck, he does the voice of Goliath. Viper's gonna kill me for not remembering his name. Whatever his name is, Keith something. But the huh?
Keith David?
Keith David, thank you. I was having trouble trying to figure out what the fucking name of that guy was. What the hell is Sinatra doing in here? Can I
He just asked us to throw Bear from the chat. I think he's on our side with the discussion over the Terminator.
I'll let Sinatra do that himself.
Funny enough, Sinatra, we have gone slightly off tangent here a little bit. This is the we're basically using up airtime we could have used for a separate video.
Yeah, we're officially talking about just general movies at this point. It's the after party. We've both agreed that Blazing Saddles is a good movie, and we didn't come to a consensus on whether or not it holds up as a timeless or dated classic. But at least I think we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Really quick though, really quick question. When it comes to movies and books, and in terms of movies being made into books, how is it that no matter what, the book just seems better? Is it because the imagination works better than the visual medium and the way they make changes?
I hear that argument a lot, and the thing is, a book, if you were to turn a book directly into a movie, because ironically, I read Red Dragon a couple of weeks ago, and the reason why is I wanted to watch Manhunter again. I don't know why, but I just had this need to see it. I haven't seen it.
William Peterson, is that right?
That's right. Yeah, the Michael Mann version.
Yeah.
And again, you'll get people forever arguing about which is better. Is the Michael Mann version, is the Brent Ritter version better? Is it better than the books? How faithful is the books? The book version of Red Dragon is so crammed with details and character development, you could not turn it into an absolutely faithful film. The film would be about 6 hours long.
And most films would be, because just the sheer amount of detail that go into books. Stuff will get lost just in the sheer 2-hour time frame, which is one of the reasons why I think movies might be on their way out with the advent of how much money's going into TV. TV gets a lot more room to tell stories, a lot more room to develop characters, and movies have just been kind of dwindling. And they suck.
Yes.
But
yeah, the great argument is that any adaptation is going to have issues, especially with hardcore fans of the book. I mean, one of the worst ones, of course, is Stephen King. You struggle to find him to find a film adaptation of any of his books he likes. I mean, I love The Shining. I think it's an amazing film. Absolutely.
And dude, and here's the thing, and I'm totally with Stanley Kubrick. The end of the book in Shining is bad. The boiler room blowing up like it's a Michael fucking Bay movie is not an end for a horror.
Yeah.
Have him freeze to death out in the thing and magically show up in the picture. There, it's kind of spooky and creepy. Kubrick was a master at making shit creepy.
Yeah, he was. I struggle to think of a bad movie he ever made, really. And what I also like about him is he was effectively an adopted Brit, an American who moved over here and then never wanted to leave. Bless him.
Yeah. Well, I would be the same way too if your country wasn't totally fucked up right now.
Well, yeah,
we're getting way off topic on that one.
He probably died at the right time. Yes.
Yeah. Fuck it. I'm out of here. Eyes Wide Shut forever. That was the one movie I didn't like. But that has nothing to do with the quality of movie, because I know it's a really good quality movie. I hate Tom Cruise. Watching Tom Cruise makes me want to blow my fucking brains out.
I had a feeling that that would be the reason, but then
I cannot think of a single Tom Cruise. I mean, I love Color of Money. Color of Money is a fantastic movie. I have to just pretend he's not in there.
Well, you know, I used to think the same thing until I saw Collateral. Although, to be fair, and again with like most Michael Mann films,
the fall didn't kill him. It was a sudden stop at the end.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that when I saw it. It was like, oh my god, you just made one of the best films I've ever seen. Fucking wank. Who came up with that?
Again, Collateral. Why do I like Collateral? Because Jamie Foxx is great.
Yes.
Jamie Foxx is one of the most over-talented people on the planet. I hate him a little bit. You can sing, you can dance, you got a six-pack ab, you can do fucking Wanda. I rock your world.
Yeah. And one of the few Hollywood stars who's actually done Joe Rogan as well, so I'll give him an extra point for that.
All right, well let's go ahead and cut this short. You know, kind of awkward now. You want to shill anything on your channel? You got anything coming out?
Well, I'm going to rip this off if that counts, and convert it into my own little slightly shorter podcast, so I can get out all the rough bits. But so
you're just going to cut me out of the fucking show? I get it. I see how you're going to do.
Well, it's going to be me saying Blazing Saddles is the best movie ever. Anybody who disagrees is retard or American. Thank you. Good night. And
well, at least you'll be accurate to how British people do fucking information.
If anybody in the chat, it is growing slowly, has not seen my channel, please do visit it. And
link is in the description.
Mr. Fodder, under his previous guise, is in one of my last videos. I did a talk show called Talking Bollox. Himself and Viper were my guests, and I'm quite proud of the eventual results, to be honest. In fact, the only thing I'm ashamed of is the fact that at the very end I misspell his new name.
That's all right. It doesn't even matter, dude. Nobody cares. Most people can't even fucking say it. I don't know. Kanen, they got Kanen. I'm like, dude, there's a Kanen on my fucking logo. I'm kind of giving you a clue. But no, that video that you did with the talking about, when I first watched, I don't like listening to myself very much. I get enough of that shit editing myself. But after about the first 10 minutes, I started really enjoying it because I got less uncomfortable. I could tell I was really uncomfortable the first about 10 minutes.
My as you well know, Mrs. Bollox watched it all the way through, and even she pointed out that you did it. You broke him after the hour. You actually made him. You broke him with the full-on English pomp that you managed to portray when you need to.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. I need you to do Richard Attenborough for me at some point. So, everyone, have a fantastic Sunday. Magic Balls, thank you very much for being on with me. Let's do it again sometime. We need to talk movies some more.
Oh yes, thank you.
Have a good day, everybody.